Hello and welcome to week 3. This week you're going to be studying sensation and perception. This is a nice bridge from your last chapter where you learned about the brain and the nervous system, as well as the other systems that are related to it. Now we're going to look at how do we bring in information from the outside world through our senses, and then how do we process that so it has meaning. In this chapter, you will get to explore lots of things like this image, which is a classic kind of visual trick, where if you look at the man's eye, you will notice that it shifts from being a profile to a straight-on shot, and back to a profile and back to a straight-on shot. It's one of those very confusing oddities about how we visually process information. So you'll be learning about lots of other examples like this one, in addition to just the basic biology of our sensory systems. Learning outcomes are divided into 3 areas this week. You have some basic definitional issues first. Then we'll look at the dominant sensory systems. And we'll talk about why they're dominant. They're dominant in some senses because they are the sensory systems that as a species we're the most dependent on, but they're also the sensory systems we know the most about as a field. So we'll look at vision and hearing. Then we'll move on to talk about how perception actually works, the various theories of that, distinguishing between bottom-up and top-down processing, for example, and also looking at Gestalt constructs that help us understand how we do perception the way we do it, and so on. Your tasks, very similar to last week. You need to do your reading of Chapter 3 and post your annotations, watch your lecture videos, take your quiz, and then you have one additional task this week, which is the first stage of your Rader Foundation Portfolio paper presentation topic. So what I'll be asking you to do is visit the Psychology in the News module here on D2L, get super familiar with it, read the assignment sheets, and then go looking for topics. And I just want broad topics for you to share with me. SciPost is a curation site that I talked about in the overview of the Psychology in the News project. It's a nice site where they curate new research being published in reputable peer-reviewed journals, and then gives you an opportunity to read a science writer's version of what those research studies tell us. Some other places where you can find topics of interest are at the websites for the 2 largest national organizations in psychological science, and that is the American Psychological Association and the Association for Psychological Science. Both websites feature a section for topics, and you can just do some exploration and pick a topic of interest to you. Now, the only limitation is your topics should be topics that are also covered in your textbook. So make sure that when you're looking at various topics, that there is at least some section of the text that touches on that topic, because that's what I will be looking for when I look at your topics, is whether or not they can be found in your text, because you will be using your text as part of your assignment. And that's your overview of week 3.